going to start streaming, put that there and there. Hey, well, welcome to another workshop here at the Test Camp. Thanks to our host here today. This is Core Academic Skills Mathematics. It's the fourth in the series here that we do for the Core Academic Skills test. So let's begin to discuss how learning and practicing test skills will empower your test confidence. Those of you joining us live online, we wish you could be here with us in person, but you're welcome to contribute your comments anytime, and we're going to include them right up here in the discussion boards. If you're joining us directly through the Test Camp YouTube channel online, well, of course, you can pause and restart or replay that video anytime, so you got a little bit of an advantage there. Okay, this workshop is the fourth in the core series, and we suggest that you train in this order because those communication competencies build on each other. However, this is mathematics, so we can do this at any time. Now, you likely know that around here, the motto is prepare, practice, and then perform. And everyone who has successfully completed over there at the training site, they've passed their test. And that's possible because test taking is a skill, and you match that up with your knowledge, you put that skill together, and you're going to have the confidence to pass. Let's get started. To prepare means to understand yourself. It's an honest assessment of how well you know the test content, that's true, but also your testing skills. So we start by learning the blueprint. And those of you who have participated in the other workshops, you might already know that the blueprint provides all the information you need to fully understand the test. Now, assessing your knowledge of the blueprint, that's the first indicator how well you're going to perform on the test, because you'll know the rules. And this can also be a good first step to creating what we call my study plan. That's simply a schedule that includes reviewing and studying test content. Now let's learn about that blueprint. Here's an overview of the test, Core Academic Skills. The mathematics test has 56 multiple choice questions, and the time allotted, as you can see right up here, 85 minutes. Now, knowing this will help put you on a pace for success. You're going to decide when to answer a problem and when to save it for the next pass through. And that's one of the testing skills we practice over at the test center, at the training center. Our first step now is to identify the types of math questions you can expect to encounter on your test. Now, not what types of questions. We know that all the questions are multiple choice. We're going to identify the math competencies on which questions are built. Here's how we isolate each competency in our individual quizzes at the test camp. Taking quizzes based on each competency provides you instant feedback and points you in the direction to review and study. One of these competencies is not on the test. Can you see which one it would? Which one do you think this one might be? Anybody? Right over, okay, right over here. Yes, you are correct. It is teaching. Instructional strategies is a competency included on all your subject area tests, but not on this test, right? This one's called Core Academic Skills, so it's academic. It's not about teaching. All right, so let's take a closer look at each competency that's included, beginning up there with the numbers. You'll find in the test information guide that these are the main concepts associated with numbers. Now, proving that you're competent with numbers also includes proving your knowledge of place value, rounding, and estimating. Let's take a quick look at a couple of sample questions based on this competency. All right, so you see it's clear why this was created on the competency of numbers. Some test writer had to write a question based on fractions. All right, let's do another one. Percents, fractions, even decimals in this one. All right, how about just looking at an answer set? Pretty easy to tell that this is probably just going to be a numbers question. And there it is. And there's dozens of these types of questions over on the quizzes in the training center. So you can check your knowledge and see if this is an area you might want to review and study. But you're probably going to do pretty well in this area. Just a quick review. Now, the next competency we said was algebra. And this might be the easiest one to identify. Maybe not the easiest one to solve, right? But the easiest one to identify. How can you easily identify an algebra question? If you see variables or an equation, that's an algebra question. Here's another example. Algebra, right? Now this is also an example of a question to mark and save. There's just too many steps to attempt to solve this problem on the first pass through. And you'll get the train on that over at the center. All right, some algebra questions might ask you to actually create an equation. So this is definitely a question to mark and save. Too much reading, too many steps. Eventually you'll come back to it on the next pass through the test. So again, there's a training activity that'll help you practice this skill. Another type of algebra question involves the coordinate plane. Now you remember the coordinate plane, right? Now why was there a need to teach this back in school? Why do we use mathematics for this? All right, well, let's think about it. If 0 is your starting point, what do you need to know to get to that point that's marked up there? Okay, there's a thing called position, right? You need to know where you are and where you're starting and where you're going. So you can identify algebra questions because they have variables or equations, but you also might have ordered pairs or slope. Remember ordered pairs up there? That is the position. Slope would be the direction. Again, there's a quiz designed for this. You'll be in good shape on this once you start to go back and remember it. Here's the third competency, geometry. If you had to explain geometry to elementary students in just one word, what would you say? What is geometry about? Shapes, exactly. All right, let's look at some sample question. Here's just starting with the answer set. So even without the stem or the question up there, it's clear that this is based on geometry. Here's another sample. Pretty obvious that this is also a geometry question. I think there's one more of these. All right, definitely geometry. So you see what we're doing here. We're trying to say, when you look at a question, understand which one of the competencies it's built on. And the next one is measurement. And there are several approaches to determining if a question is based on measurement. But the one word that defines this competency, just like with geometry it was shapes, with measurement it is units. Think about the units being measured, like these. All right, and think about what might be associated with height, like feet or inches or stories, right? How about weight? Kilograms, grams, pounds, tons, distance. What would have you heard? Leagues, right? League actually means distance, like 20,000 leagues under the sea. How about speed? If you see rate and time in a question, you're likely looking at a measurement question. All right, here's some examples of measurement questions. Starting with a conversion type. All right, here's the complicated but more classic took a trip question. There's one you know you're going to mark and save, come back to. Now here's an interesting example of a measurement question. Notice that this question is a combination of geometry, the shape, that you're being asked to measure. So which competency are we talking about here? Yeah, actually you are correct. It's geometry because you have to know something about the shape. So not so important, but at least you'll know if this is one you want to attempt on the first pass through. So that's the first 4 competencies. Do you remember the 5th? Don't say it out loud. Talk about this among yourselves for a couple minutes at the tables. When you get it, be ready to explain what types of questions might be included in this last mystery competency, number 5. All right? We'll come back in just a few minutes and go through some of your ideas. Hey, for those of you joining us today live online, share your thoughts and we'll include them in the discussion. And if you're joining us by the Test Camp YouTube channel on demand, this might be a good time to pause the recording and think about this competency. By the way, if you don't remember, it's data. So do you know the test content that's included in data? We'll be here when you restart the video. All right, so everybody has it. The 5th competency was data, correctly. All right, so here at the Test Camp, we learned to identify these types of questions easily. They're usually a report of facts. Remember, geometry is shape, measurement is units, data is facts. And here's the first example. If a data question reports facts from the past or from the present, it's reporting, that's right, statistics. And here's an example of a data question using facts to make a prediction about a future event. All right, so if they're predicting the future using these facts, it's called probability, right? And here's an example. You got one right there. Many data questions are easy to identify because they use images or graphs or tables, sometimes charts or lists. Let's look at another example. So during the training, you're going to learn how to mark and save questions like these because your first pass through the test is saved for the least challenging or the less challenging questions. Now, oftentimes the main concept of a data question is how to determine central tendency. Do you remember this? What does this mean in simple terms? Central, in the middle. What tends to be in the middle, right? So find what's in the middle. Do you remember these terms? All right, here's an example of a data question based on central tendency. All right, in just a couple minutes, we'll discuss the best resources for reviewing and studying for this test, which includes a review of these types of skills. All right, so that's a brief overview of the competencies or the types of questions you can expect on your test. What do you know about the percent to pass? What have you heard? That determines the total number of correct answers you need to pass your test, right? So the percent to pass here at the test camp is 80%. And most states require a percentage that's in the mid-70s and some even lower. The score is going to be reported as a scale score, so be sure to check in your area to find the requirement for your state. This is not a test created by someone trying to teach the math competencies. This is a standardized test to test your knowledge of the competencies. All right, so let's do some math. Based on the 56 questions we know, a passing score around here is going to be how many correct answers? Can you do it in your head? 40 plus half of that. I got about 45. Does that sound about right? It's probably going to be closer to 40 in your area or your state. So why is that important to know? That you can answer so many questions incorrectly and still pass on this test. Go ahead, back here. I'll repeat for the people listening in on the video. Yes, you are correct. That's an easy way to say it. Don't get stuck. There you go. Skilled test takers know the importance of focus on finding the questions that they can work through efficiently. They mark and save those that take more time, come back to those the second or the third time through. Real good, thanks. All right, this is a pass-fail test, so the object is to simply go and find your 45, or even less in your area. And that brings us to another way to look at this, would say, which would you choose? So if you were going to take a test today that was only based on one of these competencies, which is your strongest area, which is your most challenging area, and why do you think that is? Talk it over at your tables, then we'll discuss your preferences as a group. Hey, if you joined us here today online, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. They've been very helpful during the discussions. And if you're watching this pre-recorded video, pause the recording and do a little self-reflection. Which would you choose, and how do you prepare for a standardized test? Come back and join us anytime. Just go ahead and restart that video. Okay, so we're back. Okay, so we're back up here. We've had some interesting discussion about strategies to review and study for a standardized test. I think a lot of the conversation was about how do you study for the more challenging areas, knowing that you only need so many questions. So anyway, a lot of good discussions about that. I think we did agree, though, that there is some need to review and study, right? It's been a long time since some of us have seen some of these competencies, right, or had to work math problems. All right, so let's get ready for this. To prepare for this test, you joined this workshop, so good for you. You've gained a lot of knowledge about what you can expect on this test. Another way to prepare is to select the tools or the resources that you might need, right? So expect to see this guide. You're going to see this sign along the pathways during your training. This comes from people that have gone ahead of you. They've already gone and taken this test, so they leave encouraging messages, and also they leave some sometimes not only messages but suggestions. In this case, the suggestion is avoid spending your time and your money on expensive resources. You just don't need them for this test. Commercial webinars are a great example. Just avoid paying for these. You get free test information and strategies from workshops like this, and actually from the folks who write the test production companies, so you don't need to pay for that. Expensive tutors and tutoring companies, that might be an option, but for more challenging tests, not this one. It only goes up through 8th grade math. Overpriced study guides are sold for profit, and many study guides available are either free or inexpensive. You don't have to pay too much. Has anybody seen these study guides out there for this core series? You have? And how much were they? Do you remember? Don't let us know if you bought one. I don't want to embarrass you. $45. Okay, well, a more effective and inexpensive resource would be just to use textbooks, because now you know the competencies being tested. You could use textbooks to review and study the test content. And over at the training site in the My Resources area, you can expect to find the most popular and up-to-date tools for your success. Everything there is either free or very inexpensive. Look at that study guide. You get a used copy for about $5. So instead of investing time and money on resources, spend time investing in yourself. Practice your test skills. Expect to gain confidence and expect to gain personal independence. Your pass provides admission to these training areas, which you can see up there at the top. One is called My Test. That's an activity that enables you to check your understanding of the test blueprints and everything we've discussed here today. You can even take a pre-test before training in the My Test area. This is the test camp problem solving system. The first step up there is to find the correct answer by finding the competencies, right? You want to identify the competencies. We've done some of that here today, so that's going to be how that works when you get over there. Quizzes and tests provide an opportunity to practice your test skills while assessing your test content knowledge, and the quizzes are based on the competencies. Yes, go ahead. Yes, ma'am. Right over here. I'll repeat the question for you. Yes, so on your test, you beat me by a slide. Let me go to the next slide and I'll show you. There is a combined quiz down there, but there are practice tests, and just like on your test, everything will be combined. Right, there won't be a few numbers questions and you go on. No, they're all combined. Great question. So this is the test area over there in the training center. You can see there'll be several practice tests that are constructed with the features like those you can expect to find on test day. And as you complete the training activities, you can earn points towards a professional test certificate. You just got to finish that post test right there and you'll be all set. Then you can expect to perform with confidence that comes from the knowledge and skills you earned during the training. So let's go ahead and get started. There's no better time than now to go on over there and empower your test confidence.